How bottom can we start? There's 26 likes, but there's 68 comments. A way to burn the top 5 minutes of your show. Keep hearing my breath. Maybe there's a big trail of flies behind me. Maybe I'm Pigpen. Started saying about 10 minutes ago. Made no points whatsoever. It goes all the way up there. Sorry, my throat a little sore. And I'm getting grosser now. Excellent. Usually if I'm getting a lot of comments on anything, it's very rarely a good thing. Apparently Sweden, all of them, got mad. Fine, stand by your man, by all means. Is there some weird stuff in it? Is there some stuff I don't agree with it? Of course.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Greetings and salutations, members of the Hard Rock Lunchbox, and of course, viewers of the Top 20. How are you all today? It is just past noon on what I'm hoping is going to be the end of a very long heat wave here in the Northeast. It is July 18th, 2024, year of our Lord. Joke is never not funny to me. How is everybody doing? How is everybody faring this really kind of weird sort of midsummer situation that we've been all living in? My weekly therapy call started with a very funny clip this week. Not clip, really funny sentiment. I asked how my guy was doing. He's like, oh yeah, nothing going on this weekend at all. And it's just... There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. It's actually getting very difficult to sort of manage it and like kind of just maintain the information that we all seem to be getting, and the amount of holes in my information rival the holes in my ears and my body, all that other gross stuff. I'm trying to confirm whether or not we are indeed transmitting. Let me just check with the chat here. Yeah, cool. All right, everyone can hear me. I'm streaming. Awesome. Thank God for small favors. I know regular listeners of the show know that every now and then it's a funny situation because I use the same area here. You can't see it, but like if you could just imagine like a giant monitor in front of me, and then I got my laptop right here. But I'm on top of my old Soundcraft mixing board. I now use that as a desk because I love my Soundcraft mixing board. It's actually like got literally like it's a real mixing board. It's what I recorded. What would eventually become the She Sells Smiles, the last G Davy thing, and the Razor Blade Diaries. It's also what I recorded the Reality Crush on and through, but by that time I was already going into Logic, so I wasn't using the board so much anymore. But it's a really cool board. If you've never seen like a big mixing board, like next time you go to a local show, or even like a major show, next time you go to a local show, just find the sound guy and take a look at the board, right? So what I have here is it's a 24 channel Soundcraft board, and it's got all of its ancillary things. So it's about is that 3 feet? Maybe 3 feet wide. Anyway, that's not important. It's not what I'm here to talk about. I was saying that what happens is that this is also my pre-production studio. This is where I work on demos for the band and stuff like that. It's also where I'll track like real stuff, like that's going to end up being on a record or whatever sometimes. I've been doing a lot more of that at our producer's studio because it's just easier to work with him on those kinds of things, but I like kind of prep and practice, something I want to talk about, prep and practice in a little bit. So what happens is like, there is very little I have to change to switch over from doing the box to being like a studio musician. In fact, it's roughly, if I do it the minimal way, where I'm not turning on the monitors, if I do it the minimal way, it is literally just one button. It is one button, and it is just simply in my, it's called the Samson C control, which is just what controls the room and stuff like that. And if I don't have this button set, then I'll hear myself, but it will not transmit out to anything. And that has happened a few times where I've done like this show, and I just haven't turned it on or turned it off. Which is actually funny, because if you see on my pre-show checklist, this large ass font right there, it's turn off the 2-track A on Samson Control, and that is basically just so I remember to do that, so I can transmit to all of this. But I will say I was a little bit worried, because I knew I had been doing a lot of work, a lot of demo work in my pre-production studio here over the week, so I just out of sorts. And it's funny, because what I do is when I'm doing that, I put this microphone, because this is only my podcasting microphone, so I put this all the way up here. So it goes all the way up there, and then I know if it's up like that, it's like a drawbridge. I know if it's up like that, then I have been doing demo work, and then I have to be like extra cautious. I do not put it down until the show, because that way I make sure. But that is, ladies and gentlemen, what we call in the industry a way to burn the top 5 minutes of your show and make it as absolutely boring as possible, so that it can only go up from there. That's really what this show is all about, right? Like, the show is, how bottom can we start so that we can just go the furthest Maximus up? And yeah, that's what we're doing. I'll stop hitting the applause button, because honestly, nothing I've said has been that funny, so yeah. A couple things to talk about. I am severely under the weather. Thank you for asking. I do not get sick all that often, but I just am a little worn down. I've been having a little trouble with sleeping, but I've also been pushing myself like way too far over the past, say, week or whatever, and not really recuperating a lot of those resources. Plus, my immune system is probably just like, hey man, what's with all these 90+ degree days, man? And I've been outside, like, walking in all of it, like some pretty intense. And I have to tell you, like, I know people that do this understand this, but there is something about when you're like working out or like in an outdoor situation, not for work. Like, I was talking to Waterbury yesterday. We were talking about like how awful it is to be outside sometimes and having to work. But I'm talking like when you're working out, like when you're basically like planning to go sweat, you hit this sort of, oh, I'm sorry, man, I can keep hearing my breath. Yeah, I'm a little congested. It's really just like right all in there. Sorry. But when you're like going to work out and your intention is to go out and like get a good sweat on, when you just sort of cross that threshold and you're like, you realize your entire body is sweating, your entire body is moist, damp. And not damp because you're just old and gross. That's a whole other category, according to John Mulaney, and I wholly support his theory on that. But like when you, I don't know, it's like when people like feel the burn and you get to the point where you feel the burn, it's like, it's a really good thing. I know I'm really sorry for being so gross. I mean, and I know it's a different gross than normal, but I really do apologize, because I can't be fun to listen to. I'll try and keep my wheezing to a minimum, and then we'll just get to some music. But I know I've added push-ups back into my work. I hate push-ups. Because honestly, and people are going to make fun of me when this gets posted, but like, I can't do manly push-ups. I just can't. I can do a lot of what they used to call the girl push-ups in high school. I don't know how they do this stuff anymore with the president's physical fitness, but I always know there was like a differentiation between what the boys could do and what the girls could do, and I feel like I can do a few manly push-ups, and I can do them properly. Like, I know form is everything. Like, I can do those, but I get way more reps out of doing the ones where I'm on my knees and stuff. And I realized that like that's not the correct form for somebody like me. Like, I should be doing real ones. But as I'm trying to build my strength back up, it's an important part for me to be able to just do more reps and actually just work those muscles and build on those muscles. And then once I get to like 10, I think, once I can do like 10 like manly push-ups, and I'm not trying to be offensive, I'm not sure what the right thing to call it is, like Native American push-ups. Like, I don't really know what to call them, but like, please just understand, I'm just trying to explain this. Once I get to like 10, then I can kind of switch over to them, because then I feel like I'll be getting the reps and I'll actually be doing something. But it was funny, I added them back in to my workout routine because I really just paused on going to the gym for a little while. There's no reason why that is. There's just, mentally, I'm just not in that space. I prefer just going walking. I've been running through the trails. I've been running through the horse trails in West Hills, which has been a lot of fun lately, because it's like sand, and it's like, really kind of hard. And I play this little game with all the bugs that are there, because if you go under a certain speed, like the flies will start like, you know, coming up to your eyes and stuff like that, and bugs are like jumping out at you. But if you are above, like, I don't know, like a 3.8 mile per hour thing, the flies just kind of leave you alone, or they follow you. Maybe there's a big trail of flies behind me. Maybe I'm Pigpen. I have no idea. But I've been enjoying that way more than anything else I've been doing lately. Sometimes I like going down to the HBC soccer fields and running the soccer fields. Like, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I spend so much time in my life on soccer fields and near soccer fields that there's some sort of level of comfort. I know the other day when it was really hot, I was doing wind sprints down at the soccer fields, and I was doing it intentionally to almost like make myself nauseous, so I had like something else to focus on other than, you know, all the other moving parts that were going on in my existence. And like, that's probably not the healthiest thing, but I did have a good time doing it. So my whole point with all of that is, and the push-ups and stuff, I did the push-ups after doing all those wind sprints, and then you ever like work out to the point where you're like, that's going to be a thing in the morning, and there is something to that. Like, and I did that yesterday. I did some flies and push-ups, which I know in my weakened physical state. Now, please understand that I used to be in much better shape about a year ago, and I just gave up. I just let everything just crap to bed, and now I'm paying for it. And so I have to restart all this stuff. I'll definitely be able to do it all. I have no worries whatsoever that I'll be able to do it. I just have to start somewhere, and unfortunately I have to start lower than I wanted to. So I was doing all that stuff, and I woke up this morning, and this entire range in my body is like, it's not on fire, but it's definitely like planning a union strike or something like that, because it's definitely like, but like, there is something to be said when you reached my advanced age. Now, at the end of my life, when you reach my advanced age, what happens is that you have body aches and pains for no reason whatsoever, like just from living. Like, oh, that hurts, like just because it does. Like I found a new bony protrusion in my chest the other day, which was fun. Like, you know, so that's an old thing. That's going to be rectified soon by a guy in a long hood and a blade and stuff, and on the river sticks. But like, you have body aches and pains that are a result of nothing. Sometimes they're a result of just sleeping in the wrong position, which sucks. But when you have pain that you're like, that's why that is, it's because I did 30 push-ups yesterday and I did all these flies and stuff like that. Like, there is a certain pride. Is that the good word? Like, there's a certain pride in that. Like, that's a good ache. And that's what I meant about, like, feeling the burn, which I felt like I started saying about 10 minutes ago. Made no points whatsoever along the way. And here we are. Yeah, doing that. I wanted to talk about actually like weight and health and stuff, just because there's been some notice on my particular situation and stuff like that, and I just want to point out to everybody that I'm literally just fine. I got to the point where I didn't want to be that point anymore, and I have really just riding this particular wave to kind of just turn things around. There is nothing wrong with me mentally or physiologically or anything like that. I'm not sick other than this cold that I have. I'm making some changes. And there's a lot of other people like in our existence that are kind of in that spot. And you kind of watch them sort of hit like this, nope, I'm done doing this. And, it's good. And I try and be supportive to each and every one of those people that are going through those things. I remember I was talking to Frank not all that long ago about changes like in food and stuff like that. And he had said one of the funnier things that Frank had ever said to me. He's basically like, he discovered spices, right? Like, it's like, yeah, man, that's how more than half the world eat. And when you start replacing stuff like mayonnaise and butters and condiments and fat basically with spices, then you really start dropping calories. And when you really count calories, which is something I hate doing, but I've really just let myself to do it, like I'm going to do it again. And I'm really just trying to teach myself one more time in this life what everything I eat calorically, like what it means and what it stands for. But I too am like a big believer in spices. I'm also a big believer in bone broth. If anybody out there is looking for any sort of diet tips or fitness or health or whatever, like, I could not recommend Kettle and Fire bone broth more. They are not a sponsor, and it's fine because I don't care. I have it several times a week. I actually just had it before. It is such a good, nourishing thing. Do be careful if you have histamine problems. That's a whole other show, but like, it is just such a nourishing thing. And what I do is I put like a little clip of an arbol chili in there, and I usually squeeze like 2 cloves of fresh garlic in there, and I feel like it's just such an immune boost for me. But my point is basically just broth, right? But like, you can throw whatever you want. I mean, I know I've heard talk about, like, you put hot sauce in there, it feels really good. I think they do that on Two Bears, One Cave. I'm a big believer in pepper, the arbol chili, and some garlic, and it just, like, whew, I feel like it's a really good kind of super immunity blend. But it's also like, you know, in a serving, it's like 40 calories, but it's like 8 grams of protein, and it's like, it's a good, like, if you're doing intermittent fasting, it's really good for stuff like that. But anyway, my point is that spice is a really good thing, and I've been using a lot of spices to sort of replace the condiments that I've been using, and as a result, it turns out if you don't have mayonnaise on stuff, you just, you know, you basically save yourself like 1,000 calories a day. So that would be my health moment. But I wanted to talk more about, like, how it's actually progressing and, like, what I'm finding to be successful for me. Like, I'm not preaching anything, because I've always said that, like, for every diet thing that you see or fitness or weight loss plan that you see out in the world, there's somebody that it works for. So all I can really ever do is, like, try and compile all that stuff. Like, I know I was doing some bean diet for a while, and it was just so interesting to me, like, the mechanics of it. It did not work for me, but I really did enjoy it. But, like, just those kinds of things. Like, there's so many things out in the world, but I seem to have cracked my particular physiological code, which was upsetting, to be perfectly honest, and that's something I was going to talk about. But I do have other things to talk about today, so I'm going to punt that for another. Just know that I'm physically okay. I'm not sick or anything like that. But thank you for anybody that's asked. I appreciate that. So I do want to talk about the box and TikTok for a second, but I want to take a quick minute and just highlight and shout out to my boys in Craving Strange for their live stream on Friday night that they shot at Blockhead Studios in Farmingdale. A lot of regular listeners of the box were there, and it was great, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, I think, for the band and for the people that were there. And it really sort of first of all, let me just say, like, how absolutely fantastic the band performed that night. I've seen Craving probably no less than a few hundred times, and that might have been one of the best performances I have ever seen them give. There's a lot to be said for, hey man, this is real, this is serious, and being prepared for something. And I feel like all 4 of them took it incredibly seriously, and all 4 of them did exactly what they needed to do to deliver. And I think that deserves some applause, because it's hard to do that kind of stuff, like, and make sure all 4 cylinders are firing all 4 cylinders the entire time for a show. But I feel like they nailed it. But I also want to point out and give a very big props to the audience. I know I was having a good amount of fun, like, trying to be mass conductor in the audience, and just I told Jimmy, like, I was going to do whatever I possibly could to whip up the audience. Now, to be fair, a Craving audience does not need all that much to be whipped off. That's got to be something. Phrasing? No phrasing? It's got to be whipped up into some sort of frenzy. Craving has always had those kinds of shows. They're very audience participatory. People love those shows, and they go for not only the band, but the spectacle of being in the audience. So it's a super easy thing to really just sort of whip people up even further. But I want to point out just how absolutely fantastic the audience was. The audience was loud. They were responsive. They were a part of the show. They were a huge part of the show. And it just sort of, I guess, reconfirmed everything that I believed about our little local sandbox and our little local scene. Like, it's not something that I can do from the stage. It's not something I've ever been able to do from the stage. I just don't have that band. I don't have that persona and stuff like that. But I'm able to recognize it in other bands when they're able to successfully do this. But it's a partnership, right? The band can do it, but the fans have to be able to do it too. And this particular shout out is just for everybody that was in the room that went as hoarse as I was, just yelling and wooing and clapping and dancing and just being loud and being present and providing what I would consider to be the best possible audience response for that video recording. So for all of you, let me just give you. I'll probably have more to say about that as the day continues. Sorry, my throat a little sore. And I'm getting grosser now. Excellent. But I did want to point out something and maybe talk about something because it'll be kind of funny, I think. It'll be kind of funny if I opt to post some of this stuff. So I've told you over the past couple of weeks that I use this AI generator to create some shorts for Instagram Reels, YouTube, and it goes to TikTok too. So the Hard Rock Lunchbox has its own TikTok. I personally am not on there posting anything. Honestly, I don't feel like I have any content to really offer that's outside the box. But I do want to, every now and then, I want to keep the brand out there. It's what I've been saying I wanted to do for a couple of years, and it's the first step I've been able to do. So when I go through the clip, it generates me 20 clips, and I can approve them or not or whatever. So I feel stupid doing it, and I've noticed that I've been doing it less and less and less, but I do have to kind of step back up. The reason I do it less is a lot of times the shorts don't make any sense because they're out of context. I try and keep stuff under 60 seconds, otherwise it doesn't post as a short on YouTube. And very few people are watching the videos. I can put out a video and I'll get 25 views on it. I could put out a short and I'll get 5,000 views on it. So I'm aiming for the shorts, but unfortunately the way I ramble, a lot of times you can't get all that in a 60-second clip. So a lot of times things don't make sense. I get called out for that a lot, which is fine. And my comment is always it's just a clip. Just check out the whole show or whatever. But sometimes some of the clips I don't think are going to be terribly explosive or comment worthy, but apparently I'm wrong. And I'm wrong about most things all the time. If I'm learning anything in the past couple of years, everything that I thought I was right about, I'm incorrect about. So I'm wrong often, and this is just another example of it. And I just noticed that I wasn't on TikTok, but I get notified when there's comments on a video. So I noticed that I was getting a bunch of comments on something. So I was feeling a sort of way yesterday. So I just hopped on to just see what they were, because honestly, with the exception of Bill on YouTube, I don't get a lot of good comments. I mean, although Bill's comments on YouTube are always really good because it's usually insightful and then we have some sort of conversation about it. So it's additive. I feel like it's you ever have an appendix to a book or whatever, or a prologue or whatever? I feel like that's what Bill and I do at the bottom. And you're all welcome to join in on that conversation. But those are on YouTube. But usually if I'm getting a lot of comments on anything, it's very rarely a good thing. I think I told you when I had released the clip about Sweden or whatever, and apparently Sweden, all of them got mad. And understandably so, they were disagreeing with what I was saying, which I actually really appreciated until I started getting called names and stuff like that. I'm you can just correct me and stuff like that. I said even in the comments there, I was reading from the Sweden government site. It wasn't I was making stuff up from my imaginary knowledge of Sweden. I was just reading something from their site, and apparently that was wrong. And I was you might want to take that up with your Minister of Information because this is what it says, but that's neither here nor there. So I had posted a clip that was basically talking about Trump's 34 felonies, and I was saying, I don't know why people aren't... honestly, I know why some people aren't bothered by it, because nothing's going to bother them about, their candidate. Nothing would bother them about their favorite football team either, or their favorite baseball team. If their team got accused of cheating, if what was it, the Patriots, they got accused of deflating the ball or whatever, and Patriots fans were no information whatsoever, just standing by their team. And honestly, me personally, I find there to be some sort of admirable quality about that. Stand by your team. Honestly, stand by your candidate. I'm fine with that. If you're, ride or die for Trump, fine. That's completely fine. And I fully expect you to do that. But it's I thought, and I still think, that anybody that gets convicted of 34 felony, or just even one felony, I don't necessarily know that that's somebody that I want to hire for a job. And I know that because most job applications are, have you ever been convicted of a felony? I think I was saying that I think it's true that you can't even serve in the armed forces if you've been convicted of a felony. And I thought that should give some people some pause to like really look into things. And I didn't really think it through, that obviously the true believers are not going to think that way, and they'll be like, fine, he's got a felony, big deal. I'll vote for him anyway. I believe in all of these other things. Which, to be perfectly honest, I think is a fine way to be. If you're fine with that felony, or you don't think it's like a big felony, then fine, stand by your man. By all means, Tammy Wynette or whoever that was correct. Definitely stand by your man if that's the case. But the best part for me was I did start looking through the comments. Now, on this particular clip on TikTok, there's 26 likes, but there's 68 comments. I only made one, well, I could tell you in a minute, but like of them, like some of them are just so funny. Like there's one in here, like, so I talk about like the felonies. It's like, can't call them that anymore. The case was thrown out. Okay, that's not true. The case was thrown out in Florida. That's the document case, and Jack Smith has already appealed it. The case in New York has not been thrown out. It's actually, there's going to be sentencing. I think they pushed it back to September, at which point I'm sure President Trump or former President Trump will appeal, because that's how the legal system works. And I have no problem with that. Like, we talked about this. Like, you cannot like the way things are. Like, I had this in the Second Amendment debate, right? Like, I am not a big fan of having a lot of guns in an area, especially an area of like 8 million people, like New York City. You want to have them like in the middle of Colorado or Wyoming. Like, I'm way more cool with that. But I also understand what the language is. And I understand there's some discrepancy about like what pertains to like a militia and all that other stuff. But the Founding Fathers were not idiots, and they definitely did like try and, you know, split the difference a little bit. And if you're ever curious about why the Constitution and the Bill of Rights look the way they do, read the Federalist Papers, because that will give you a lot of understanding on the thought process. It's a lot of letters back and forth, like between Hamilton and Madison and, you know, Adams and Jefferson. Like, there's a lot of backstory as to how the final wording went into the Constitution, and I feel like that's important. So when it comes to the Second Amendment, like I said, I'm not fond of so many people having access to guns, especially while we're in this sort of weird mental health crisis state or whatever that we're in right now. But it doesn't matter, because it is what it says, and I do believe that we have the right to bear arms and stuff like that, even if I personally don't believe it. But it doesn't matter, because I'm an American, I'm a proud American, and I live in this country, and those are the rules and laws of this country, which is fine, which is why I'm totally fine with, you know, President Trump's case in Florida getting thrown out and Jack Smith appealing that. I'm totally fine with Trump's conviction in New York and him appealing that once the sentencing comes through, because you have to get sentenced, I think, first, because I think that completes it. But again, I'm not a lawyer. Any lawyer, feel free to correct me on that. Don't call me any names. I'm asking you to just correct me if I'm wrong on that. So I'm fine with the way that our legal system works, because it's the way our legal system works. Is there some weird stuff in it? Is there some stuff I don't agree with it? Of course. But that is, you want to affect change, then affect change. But complaining about the way that it is and saying it's just not right or whatever, or it's, you know, like not real or valid, is just silly. Like, it's the rule of law. Like, that's something that we get to do here, right? We don't get to decide by like mass opinion. Like, that's silly. That's what American Idol is for. So not our legal system. So that was the first one. And then I get stuff like this. Like, I'm getting like, those 34 felonies are absolute garbage. That's why it doesn't bother us. Like, okay, but they are felonies, like, as defined by the statute. Like, and it was very clear. Like, you know, the DA was like, if he had just done one thing, it was fine. If he had just admitted to one thing, it would also have been fine. But unfortunately, falsifying business records in furtherance of something having to do with campaign finance, it's a felony. I didn't make that rule. Like, it's not something I did. It just happens to be the law. So they could be, you know, garbage, but they are the rule. So, you know, it's like you see those rules sometimes, like, you know, you can't dance with a goat on a table on Sundays in Kansas. Like, yeah, it's just the rule. We had that thing in Arizona when they were talking about how they were reverting back to some pre-Civil War statute in the territory of Arizona because they had overturned Roe v. Wade, and Arizona just didn't have a new law on the books, so it became illegal immediately to have any abortion, either incest, rape, or for the life of the mother. And I think Arizona has gone ahead and fixed that, but it was still the rule. And I even defended the court at the time. People were really mad that that was allowed to happen, but it's the way that it goes. Like, that is just the law. And if you don't like the law, then you should appoint people and you elect people that are going to change those laws. That should be important to you. You can't just be like, that law is garbage. Because you know what law is garbage? Like having to drive 20 miles an hour in a school zone when you know that it's summer. Like, I feel like that's garbage. Try explaining that to a police officer that pulls you over. He's going to tell you it's the law and you were speeding. It's kind of like that. But there were just so many more of these things. Like from a garbage judge, from a garbage jury, from a garbage New York City. It really doesn't bother me. It seems to bother you a lot, though. Yeah, well, I explained what my take on that was. Like, somebody willing to commit a crime like that and falsify business records and furtherance of some campaign finance violations, yeah, I think that's something worth looking into. It's not necessarily something that bothers me, per se, but I think it's certainly noteworthy. But, like, when you're just like, yeah, it's a garbage judge, garbage New York City, like, dude, that just tells me how small-minded you are. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's how our system works. It's jurisprudence, it's trial by jury. All those things happened. All those things went down, and that's just how it works. Like, you can not like the outcome all you want. Like, a lot of people didn't like the O.J. Simpson outcome either, but it was the way the law worked, and that's sort of too bad. I think you should be more worried about the fact that Ashley Biden's diary was proven factual. I love that stuff. Misdirection is one of my favorite things. Like, oh, but he did it. That's always just such a great thing. Like, we stopped doing that when we were in third grade on the playground. Like, if you're ratting out somebody, well, he did it first. Like, that is just such a, just a childish response. Like, keep it separate. And, whatever. Ashley's Biden's diary, like, prosecute the dude. Like, it's super easy. You're telling me there's no red states out there that can get this done? I mean, come on. Seriously, come on. There's a lot. Texas, like, the Attorney General in Texas sued to like stop the certification of the Joe Biden election. I'm sure if he wanted to bring a case against him with Ashley Biden's diary, he would. So stop bitching to me about it. Call up Texas and see if they'll handle your case. And they were misdemeanors that were magically turned into felonies. That whole thing was bogus and will be overturned. It's the law of the land, and it was explained actually in very black letter law. Like, it just kind of was. So it wasn't magically turned into anything. It was legally turned into something. And again, you cannot like the law you want. I suggest that you rally behind people that are willing to change those laws. I think it's important. If it is a bad law, then it should be off the books. And then, dude, if you do something one time, you get charged one time, not 34 times. This one I actually agree with. I don't I understand there's 34 counts of an indictment. And I understand why that is, because if you murder 34 people, you get charged with 34 counts of murder, not just one murder. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think in this particular case, the 34 felonies is overkill. In my head, I consider it to be one felony. It wasn't like 34 felonies. And if I misspoke when I was talking about it, I was saying like he was convicted of it, and I feel like that is important. It wasn't the number. It could be one, it could be a million. I don't care. It was the same offense as far as I'm concerned. So I agree with you. I can't read your name on this. Or it's Adam. I think you're totally right. They were not felonies. It's all hogwash. Not true. Come on, man. Garbage charges. Everyone sees this. Not everyone, apparently. Trial was a scam by Democrats to stop Trump from running. Also not true. Like, seriously, like, he violated something, and he did pay that porn star to be quiet, and, like, I guess that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that paying hush money, and they did say that actually paying hush money itself is not a crime. If he had just written a check, like, out of his personal checkbook, apparently there's no crime there, and that's good to know. I mean, I'm not paying anybody $150,000 in hush money. To be perfectly honest, I don't have $15 to pay anybody in hush money. But I do think that that's interesting. Like, he had the option to do it completely legally and opted to not because he wanted to run it through the campaign funds, which apparently is what makes it illegal. There's a lot of rules on the books about like campaign finance, because because there's been so much dark money over the years that they've added a lot of rules about what you can and can't do with campaign finance stuff. We'll probably talk later on in the show about what just happened with Elon Musk and his over doubling down on conservative stuff and the amount of millions of dollars he's given and everything he's doing on Twitter, which is probably worth watching and stuff like that. But anyway, so this goes on and on. If you're on TikTok, I encourage you to check it out. I think it was funny, and basically the only I wasn't going to address any. I addressed one person because one person did say it was talking that this is a radio show or whatever, and he was like, "It's a podcast, genius," and I'm like, okay. I explained to him because they probably wouldn't know, but I was like, first of all, the name calling really pisses me off. So if you don't know and you're ignorant, just act with some civility, because this is a radio show. The Hard Rock Lunchbox is a live internet streaming radio show. It's on every Thursday from noon to 2. If you want to check it out, by all means do that. What we're doing right here, when I video the first 20 plus minutes of the show, and holy crap, is it late. When I video that is the video podcast that becomes the top 20. But what I'm doing when I'm speaking to a live radio audience. This is a live radio show. So I did comment back to him because I wanted to point out what a genius he wasn't, and that's why I did that. But I just left a blanket comment about how I find it really funny how quickly people will abandon the rules of law and the laws of this country when it doesn't suit them. I find that terribly problematic, way more problematic than anybody that's been convicted of one felony, or let alone 34. The fact that people just don't respect the rule of law when their team is on the defending end of it is just really, really bananas. And that really is something that should be checked. You cannot like it all you want, and you can be disgusted by jury verdicts all you want. That's why we have appeals, and we have, appeals courts and Supreme Courts and all that other stuff to kind of hash that out. If it is just a corrupt jury, that's what that's for. And that's just fine, because that's the way our system was set up. Is it perfect? No. But it is ours, and I feel like it does deserve some respect. And what I'm seeing out there is that everybody that doesn't like what happened all of a sudden throws their respect out the window. And those are not exactly the best kinds of Americans, because you need to love the way this country works, and you need to love the way that it's been set up, and you need to abide by the rules and laws of this land if you want to consider yourself a good American. Any of those things don't apply to you, and you're not actively working to change them, to make them better for all of us, then you're just sitting there complaining, and you're basically being the problem. And that's unfortunate, because there's a lot of them these days. So I'm sorry for talking way too long. The top 20 has now become the top 40, and I'm basically ashamed of that. So I'm going to get to some local music right now. I'm going to go take some throat stuff to try and, no phrasing, I'm going to take some throat stuff to try and calm this fire down that's in my throat right now. And then we'll get back to talking sooner, probably, rather than later. But yeah, let's get to some local music. I feel like I've been playing this one a lot lately, but it's okay, because I really dig this one. It's one of my favorites from the Neon Skyline. They've got a show coming up on August 2nd at Abbeville Music Hall. I will not be in attendance because I will be over at Nostalgia getting ready for my own show. But yeah, I fully expect you'll be able to hear this one from the stage at least once.